Okay, cool. Um, so he says, I said those examples aren't great, and he actually agrees with me. In the next sentence, he says, my own initial reaction is that such a comparison is hysterical, meaning too much, extreme, meaning comparing people that eat lobster to Nero or Mengele experimenting on Jews, or Nero torturing slaves for fun. He says my initial reaction is that such a comparison is extreme. And yet, the reason it seems extreme to me appears to be, because he's thinking about what he thinks, appears to be that I believe animals are less morally important than human beings. Um, he thinks that they don't get the same rights that human beings have. And I like the way he puts it. He says, it appears to be that I believe animals are less morally important than human beings. I really like that. It's not that he believes that animals, because if you ask me if I think animals are like, less important than people, I might be like, no, I think animals are probably our equals. But the way that I eat meat, clearly indicates that it reveals that I think something else. If you, it's a tricky thing, but if you ask people what they believe, they'll tell you. But if you watch what they do, you'll often discover that it seems like from what they do, they believe something else. So if you ask me if I think animals are valuable, I would say yes. But if you watch what I do, you'd notice I eat a lot of meat. And so the problem is there's like a contradiction in my brain where I think one thing, but then I act like something else. And David Foster Wallace says, it appears to me that anybody who eats meat must believe that animals are less valuable, that the suffering of animals doesn't matter as much as my entertainment at the dinner table. Um, and if you asked me that, I wouldn't want to admit that. I wouldn't want to be like, no, 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 no. Most people won't admit that. Most people won't say to you, I think my entertainment needs are more valuable than the pain of living creatures. But most people won't say that. But most people do kind of act like that because they do eat animals for fun when they don't have to. So it's complicated. It's this issue that like belief, what you believe is very complex because you may think you believe one thing, but the real question is how do you act? Um, and people, those things, in a perfect world, if Socrates got his way, people's actions would match their beliefs. But in the world that we live in, very often your beliefs and your actions don't seem to match. You're like, oh, I love animals. I love them so much. And you watch cute animal videos, but then you eat meat, which means you're totally fine with those animals being killed for your entertainment. You may not think you're fine with it, but obviously you are, and you wouldn't eat the meat. It's an uncomfortable topic to raise. Um, okay. Um, and he has a little footnote here. Meaning a lot less important, meaning he thinks animals are less important, a lot less important, apparently, since the moral comparison here is not the value, um, of one human's, by the way, this should be of, not or, um, since the moral comparison here is not the value of one human's life versus the value of one animal's life, but rather the value of one's animal's life versus the value of one human's taste for a particular kind of protein, right? So it's not even about do you think animals are more important than people? It's do you think people's entertainment preferences are more valuable than animals? That's a much more disturbing thing to realize. Because some people will put it like, do you think human beings are worth more than animals? And you could say sure, but then do you think human beings' entertainment needs are worth more, meaning entertainment at the dinner table because you enjoy eating this kind of food? Do you think human beings' entertainment needs are more important than the life of an animal? That's much worse to think that. Um, but that is indeed what most people, including me, act like what they believe. Um, Even the most die-hard carnophile, meaning somebody who loves to eat meat, will acknowledge that it's possible to live and eat well without consuming animals, right? So you don't have to do it. Um, so to go back up here to where that footnote was, he says, and when it comes to defending such a belief, even to myself, I have to acknowledge that A, I have an obvious selfish interest in this belief since I like to eat certain kinds of animals and I want to keep doing it, and B, I haven't succeeded in working out any sort of personal ethical system in which the belief is truly defensible instead of just selfishly convenient. So he has to admit that he does enjoy eating meat and he wants to keep doing it, but that if you ask him to explain why it's okay, he can't. It's just convenient that he lives in a world that supports this without question. But if a philosopher wanted to know why do you think it's okay to eat meat, he can't really explain it in a satisfying way. Because you'd have to say something like, well, I consider my entertainment needs to be more valuable than a living creature's life. That's really one of the only ways you can defend it. And he doesn't do that. And so he's struggling with this. And one of the things I love about David Foster Wallace is that you can see that he's really thinking about this. He doesn't know what the right answer is. Usually when you read an essay, the person has like a point. And the point is something like, eating meat is okay, or eating meat is bad. PETA would write an essay that would say, eating meat is bad because, one example, two example, three example. But David Foster Wallace is writing an essay where he's like, yeah, I don't know what I think about this. I enjoy eating meat, but if you think about it, it's obviously wrong, and I don't even know how to explain it to you, and I don't know how to explain it to myself. I think that's really interesting to watch his mind work. It's a fascinating thing. And David Foster Wallace has a really interesting mind. I think it's just fascinating to kind of see him do this. Okay. Guys, we're on the last paragraph. We got there. We're almost done. He says, given this article's venue, meaning the fact that it's in a magazine for people that enjoy fine food, including meat, he says, given this article's venue and my own lack of culinary sophistication, meaning he says, listen, this is a magazine, the article's venue, this is a magazine for people that enjoy eating meat. That's the people he's writing this article for. And my own lack of culinary sophistication. I mean, David Foster Wallace doesn't care about fancy food or even know that much about fancy food. So he says, given this article's venue and my own lack of culinary sophistication, I'm curious about whether the reader, that's you, can identify with any of these reactions and acknowledgments and discomforts. He's wondering, do you understand what he's talking about? Like, if you're reading this magazine, obviously the people that read the magazine, they just love to eat meat. So maybe they're all fine with it. But David Foster Wallace, when he sees all the lobsters getting killed, thinks, boy, maybe this isn't okay. Maybe this is terrible. Maybe this is unethical. And so he's asking the readers of the magazine, boy, I mean, obviously you guys love food, and I don't really know what I'm talking about, but do you understand this feeling that, like, maybe eating meat is wrong? He says, I'm also concerned not to come off as shrill or preachy when what I really am is more like confused. He feels confused because his thoughts about animals are very different from the fact that he just enjoys eating them. For those gourmet readers who enjoy well-prepared and presented meals involving beef, veal, lamb, pork, chicken, lobster, etc., do you think about the possible moral status and probable suffering of the animals involved? If you do, what ethical convictions have you worked out that permit you not just to eat, but savor and enjoy flesh-based viands, that's food? Since, of course, refined enjoyment rather than mere ingestion is the whole point of gastronomy. Gastronomy is sort of fancy cooking. If, on the other hand, you'll have no truck with confusions or convictions, meaning you don't want to even deal with it. No truck is like you're not even going to deal with it. If, on the other hand, you have no truck with confusions or convictions and regard stuff like the previous paragraph as just too much fatuous navel-gazing, meaning too much useless thinking about your own thoughts. Like, stop uselessly thinking about your own thoughts and just live. He says, what makes it feel truly okay on the inside to just dismiss the whole thing out of hand? Like, why do you think about these things? And if you don't, why do you think it's okay to just ignore it? That is your refusal to think about any of this the product of actual thought, or is it just that you don't want to think about it? And if the latter, then why not? Do you ever think even idly about the possible reasons for your reluctance to think about it? I'm not trying to bait anyone here, meaning he's not trying to trick you. I'm genuinely curious. And that's the end of it. That is the end of the David Foster Wallace. He just wants to, I think it's the end of it. Let me turn the page and find out. Yeah, that's it. Okay, that last paragraph, Actually, I want to pick this up in the next video.